And then when the SEC is asked about it, they say, oh, he's not guilty, or he hasn't pled guilty yet when he already had. And then they arrogantly, declare executive privilege.
Well, the SEC has been emasculated. It is utterly non-functional. What we now know, finally, because finally Congress started to hold some hearings last year into the rating agencies, and we learned the following things about the rating agencies. And the rating agencies were absolutely critical. If you don't get a AAA rating, you can't sell this toxic waste.
All right, stay there, sir. We got a break. Quick break. Come back with our guest, William K. Black. He is a associate professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law, and one of the head honchos that went after the SNL barons successfully during the 1980s. But now they're back with a vengeance and swallowing the whole world in a black hole of debt.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold for your IRA? The financial industry refuses to recognize the value of real hard assets for your retirement. The truth be told, gold and silver has outperformed paper investments like stocks, bonds, and CDs, yet no word about IRAs. Perhaps the financial institutions want to maintain control of your assets by keeping you in paper. If you'd like to take a look at gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low return on your paper investments. Call 800-686-2237. Make sure that you secure your future. Call 800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237.
All right, William K. Black is our guest. We're going to go right back to him. Mr. Black, boiling it all down, but in your own words, both parties are bought and paid for by Wall Street. Obama got, 4 times the Wall Street money McCain did. I'm not saying I was, pushing McCain either. Obama's claiming he's fighting Wall Street when his whole administration, it seems, is filled with the very people that got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act and allowed this to happen from the 1990s. And, of course, the Bush people were willing accomplices as well. I mean, can you speak specifically to that?
Oh, sure. Clearly, the Rubin, Summers, Geithner wing of economic advice in the Obama administration is very, very similar to Paulson's views. In other words, there really is not much of a difference at all between the two administrations in their view. There was broad bipartisan support for getting rid of the Glass-Steagall law, for example. There was broad bipartisan support for destroying Brooksley Born's effort to regulate credit default swaps, which are the things that blew up AIG. And at AIG, the taxpayers have already lost more money than the entire savings and loan debacle cost. And by the way, AIG, we weren't on the hook. It's not a federally insured depository. That was gratuitous giveaway of taxpayer money.
So this is a new level of Ponzi schemes where they make hundreds of billions and trillions on the way up, and now with the bailouts on their Ponzi scheme, they get even more money on the other side of it with the taxpayer on the hook. Well, this will only encourage more fraud.
That's exactly what we're trying to get across. You do this type of thing, you encourage businesses to be even more abusive going forward because they can do the most outrageous things, get incredibly wealthy through the bonuses doing them, and even when they cause disaster, they get new bonuses and more compensation paid by the taxpayers. It is a system, the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy is got to be the theme for both administrations because it is utterly insane policies.
But isn't it crazy like a fox? I mean, they make money on building up the pyramid Ponzi scheme, and then now, because they're in total control of both parties in the executive, legislative, judicial to a certain extent, and they control the military and the police, and they control the media, and so it's crazy like a fox. I mean, they're making out like bandits.
Oh, I don't say it's crazy from a banker's perspective. It's perfectly sensible from a banker's perspective. But from any politician's perspective, yeah, we can understand how much they get in the way of campaign contributions, but this is a superb way to get thrown out of office.
Yes.
And it's a superb way to have your reputation destroyed and to have your integrity besmirched.
Is it not a superb way, Professor Black, to also cause a Weimar Republic type situation?
Well, I think that we'll stop short of Weimar this time, certainly, but if you keep this up, you will take, in by far the top nation in the world in a whole host of dimensions, and you will reduce it to another case of crony capitalism, where you have utter socialism for the rich, in the sense of the failed bankers, paid for by all of us. And that will be a very bad place to live in, so let's all work together to prevent it from happening, right? Let's turn this around now, as opposed to waiting for it to become as bad as Weimar.
Wow, that is just amazing. I try to explain that to people, and they're like, it's liberal, it's conservative, it's socialism, it's fascism. And I'm like, no, this is corrupt pirates running inside scams, bankrupting everything, and then having the people pay for it. When Newsweek comes out and says we're all socialists now, isn't this is the opposite of socialism. This isn't them helicoptering money down on the people. This is helicoptering money to the offshore banks.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted precedents, it would be closest to National Socialism.
I guess where they call it socialism, but really just give it all to the inner party?
Yeah, it's a fascist arrangement.
And then they call it socialist.
Right. Well, the Nazi Party called themselves National Socialists. I'm not comparing either of these to Nazis. I don't think that's, that misuse of the phrase strikes me as really diminishing what Nazis were all about.
But the economic system is similar.
But the economic system is, I think the best way to describe it is crony capitalism.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible system. Anybody who's ever lived in a nation like that doesn't want to be there. Unless, of course, they're the crony capitalists.
Okay, exactly. It's good for them, nobody else. Let's come back and talk about who's at fault, how we bring them to justice so that we can stop them, because they control the political system now. If we don't stop them somehow, as you said, it's going to lead to Weimar Republic or, I guess, Zimbabwe. His book is The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. You got to read it, folks. We really appreciate William K. Black. Okay, in the limited time we have with William K. Black, top federal investigator of the SNLs, the Keating Five, helped send some of them to jail. And they got memos out from Keating saying, we want to kill this guy, kill him dead. Clearly, very, very scary people. And a lot of folks ended up getting, dying mysterious deaths, not just here, but in Australia and BCCI and Clark Clifford and that whole CIA front. Mr. Black, continuing here, I want to go back briefly and then get into who's culpable, what Geithner's up to, how we stop him, because there's this key nexus point. As you point out, when you got Paulson, you got Geithner, it now comes out that even, before Obama was elected and after he was elected, they were already working with Geithner on writing up the bailout, the banker takeover, when he was head of the New York Fed. And you've got the chief of staff, Emmanuel from Wall Street. And, I mean, literally, it's this tight coterie, this group of people in there working together, Republicans and Democrats, like I've never seen before in modern history. And so, but a lot of people, email me and say, oh, don't bash Obama. This was Bush that did all this. And I'm like, yeah, Bush did it, and now Obama's going along with it. So can you break down what happened with the banker bailout? And or from your own research, is that bipartisan?
The banker bailout is fairly bipartisan. It's wrong, not even so much, frankly, because of politics directly, as because of very, very poor creation of the plan, originally by Secretary Paulson, and then eventually with the assistance of Geithner when he was still president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. This really wasn't compelled on them by the politicians. This is more, they are so tight with the industry. Paulson in particular, after all, is the guy who came from Goldman Sachs. had run Goldman Sachs before he became Treasury Secretary, had gotten Goldman Sachs into toxic waste. He's the guy that got them into trouble with toxic waste. Then he comes out, and AIG is in trouble. He appoints a group to give him advice, and he puts Goldman Sachs, his own firm, on the advisory panel when it has a massive conflict of interest because AIG owes it billions and billions of dollars. And guess what? They advise Paulson first to bail out AIG and then to secretly bail out favored banks, in particular Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs got $12.9 billion, the biggest single recipient of taxpayer money through this kind of bailout. And then